everyone, welcome to my channel, Books, Kiss and Furs. My name's Leslie, and excuse me, we are here to discuss Another Country by James Baldwin, published in 1960. This book was 436 pages. There's plenty of other books by the author. The ones that I have read are Go Tell It on the Mountain, Notes of a Native Son, Giovanni's Room, Nobody Knows My Name. I think I've read that one. The Fire Next Time, If Beale Street Could Talk, The Evidence of Things Not Seen, which is like a personal favorite of mine. And I haven't quite read No Name in the Street. I think I was supposed to for this readathon, but I switched it out with Another Country. Oh, I am reading this because this is the last book on Lestat's bookshelf for my readathon. It's an Interview the Vampire Inspired readathon. I started it last year in January, and it's really praising the adaptation of the books because it's really done its own thing that really works really well. And yeah, so I'm just a fan that just wants to kind of like dip myself into the fictional world more, along with the celebration of like all the other books that I'm enjoying reading. So hopefully you're encouraged to read more books based on this alone, in case you happen to be a fan of the Vampire Chronicles as well. All right. This is going to be a spoiler discussion. I can't get away from that. I'm also going to kind of leave this brief because, as you can see, I read this book, but there's not a lot of notes in here. It was just, I've read plenty of other books. This book gave me the same emotional hangover that All I See Is Violence did. And so it just did a number on me. And so, something that James Baldwin does well is create such a vivid world that, and he constantly uses imagery. So it's very easy for the reader to picture the world that we step into. I'm going to have some notes, but off to the side. Where do we go? Okay, so this is about not just like one or two characters. It's like a group of friends. But ultimately, this takes place in 1950s Greenwich Village and Harlem. So this is also, I think, partly in France. France and Harlem and Greenwich Village. And so this was published in like the 1960s, and it really explores the trademarks of what James Baldwin does. So it's like racial dynamics, like sexuality, just it's tough. Usually I would be like more, I think I'd be more eloquent, but I think I'm still like digesting it. But definitely like social prejudices. He discusses class dynamics as well. And so we're following Rufus. So this is the tough part. We're following Rufus Scott, and he is a Black musician, and he involves himself in a relationship with this woman, and I think he takes out all his frustrations from like having to deal with like racial prejudice out on this woman to the point where she goes crazy. And so also, if you haven't read the book, just know that warnings abound from here on out. I think that was like the hardest part for me in the book. All his books tend to be like a little bit of a hard read, just emotionally, because there's like the level of like the emotional current is very like painful. But he's definitely violent to this woman in like a variety of ways that basically drives her insane. And so I think that was hard to read about. Usually I do okay. It just depends on the book, but something about this time around, it was just so effective, and therefore it just like I guess I just took it harder this time around. Um, this is also someone he keeps engaging in this relationship with this woman, even though he feels like she's not really understanding him and what he's going through via like racial prejudice. So it's like I feel like he keeps engaging with someone and thinking that they're gonna develop an understanding for something that she just I don't know, unwillingness to or just can't. I don't know. Um, and there's also this like I guess you could say like almost like a friendship incestuous relationship that all these like other characters have. Um, and so it's just very intense. I did respect also conversation like around sexuality and the dynamics of that time, but it was a lot. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say other than it was a lot, and I wish I had more eloquent words for this. But this time around, it was just very intense, and it's like over 400 pages. But there are plenty of reviews for this book that really give it high praise, and Baldwin always deserves it. I don't know what it is. I think maybe I'm not like in the right headspace to really take it in. Something that Baldwin taps into really well is that when a character, well, I'll say when a group of people feel like they go out into the world and they're like constantly emasculated, specifically men, that's why violence against women occurs. Um, that's like the social connection is that a man will try to reassert uh, his masculinity and going home and taking out on the people that they're in a relationship or their loved ones is part of the cycle, and that's something that he explores quite a bit. I mean, in Giovanni's Room, which a lot of people are, this is like their go-to first book to read for James Baldwin. There's definitely like a same-sex relationship, and it's um, volatile, but also like how women are treated is not good. Um, and also, I would say "Go Tell It on the Mountain" is the one that is like probably the best example that he's written that's like so concise as far as like really mapping out how like black men are treated and then how they take it out on family at home. I say that specifically because that's what he's exploring in his books. Um, but then also, I feel Street Talk. I felt like it was more like a cycle of violence that can get up, and also like the cycle of oppression of people being falsely accused and put into prison, uh, specific, specifically like racial prejudice. So, you know, even if someone doesn't commit a crime, if they happen to be black, well, then we're going to grab them and we're going to accuse them of a crime that they didn't commit. And so all that, there's like a lot of like cycle of violence going on and how it just kind of goes on and on. And um, I know everyone, they like to use, what's that one? The fire. Many people use the example of the fire next time, but for me, it's always been the evidence of things not seen because I really felt like he was outlining what happens in all his other books of what he's trying to say, which is basically what I'm getting at, right? Which is how the psycho violence kind of like the root of it, and then it just goes on and on and on. And so I just felt like that was 400 plus pages of him doing that, and it was just a lot to take in. Especially the other thing is that I used to have to hear about this stuff like on a like on a professional level. That was something that I had to take on and hear quite a bit about. So it's just sometimes stepping back into the world, even though it's a fictional world, it's very much based in reality. It's just tough, like I don't know. I don't need the reminder. I'm aware. So I wish I could do a better job of discussing this book. But there are actually there's Prince Shakur who has incredible, top-notch discussions about Baldwin, and I will include his below in case you're interested and you want something like way more in depth, um, way better than what I'm uh, saying. So with that said, I'm just going to leave it there. I can try to kind of talk about what stuck out to me, and then just keep this short. Excuse me. All right. So there are always three questions that I answer, and one is, why does this character have the book on their shelf? Um, I guess this leads back to my readathon. Lestat is someone that is severely self-involved and sometimes just can't see past the mirror, in my opinion. And the show adaptation done by AMC has Jacob Anderson playing Louis de Pointe-du-Lac. I feel like if he's ever really going to um, continue or like try to have a budding relationship with Louis, he just needs to be in a position to fight back for him instead of trying to tell Louis to, um, let's sideline all this stuff. Like he can't like brush things under the rug per se. And I think that's what I want to see for him in going into season 3. I just don't know if it's gonna happen because we know Lestat's a bit of a chaos monster. But I so desperately want them to bond. And I think he's gonna read about this relationship and maybe try to feel like some sort of closeness with Louis, of reading from Rufus's point of view, because Louis had such a hard time and at times didn't really want to go on living. And so I'm hoping he'll kind of like pay attention to the signs, not just of what Rufus was feeling, but how people around Rufus from the book made him feel and what he was up against. So maybe then he could just have those alarm bells instead of telling Louis, hey, you're upset, let's go see something. Let's go do something I want to do. How about we go do something that Louis wants to do? So I hope he keeps that in mind. But also there's like such a musical aspect to this. And James Baldwin, he does actually have very much a musicality to the way that he writes. No one writes like James Baldwin, in my opinion. And so there's just this elegant flow to James Baldwin's writing that not just anyone could take on, amongst all this harsh reality that James Baldwin is navigating. Really, it's like, I know it's so tiresome to say like a book's about like the human condition, but really that's what all his books are about, but just like facilitated through like religion, facilitated through sexuality, facilitated through like racial prejudice, through class, through caste, through all these different elements that like humanity kind of like enforces in a way. Did the book contextualize the character for me? Maybe not so much this time around. I know this is like I'm reading for Lestat, but I think I'm more focused on his love for Louis. And also Louis is my favorite character, so it doesn't matter whose readathon I'm on. I tend to like make it about Louis somehow. I just think that Lestat's someone that's like really mixed up emotionally. And although we're gonna say that, yeah, he is a rock star. He is a rebel person, but there's also this big well inside him that he wants to be loved. And I think that we're gonna see him with his band, and I kind of feel like, wouldn't that also be like a found family situation? But I think he's going to mess it up. We'll see. We shall see. So what book would I recommend to Louis? Last question, and you know what? Should I do it? Hold on. I'm going to cheat here and say I want him to read the last book. I want Lestat to read Interview with a Vampire, but not by Anne Rice, by Daniel Malloy. I cannot wait for us to have an understanding of like what that adaptation is, because it's going to be part Daniel Malloy. What is his perspective? Then he's going to have to hear about like what Louis thought, and not just in the Dubai sessions, but what he said in the San Francisco sessions. And this is all going to be clouded by what? We already saw the teaser, and there's a store clerk, the bookstore clerk, said something like to the effect of like, oh, Armand has so many layers. Like, this is more the interesting character. So is it really just a perception of the reader, or did the writer make it seem like that more so? And I find that fascinating on that level. But because it seems to upset Lestat, I'm so anxious to see what the dynamic is going to be with Armand and Lestat this season 3, because I'm sure we're going to dig into their time together. We're definitely not seeing that. I'm sure we're being getting glimpses of the show mainly from like the first and second episode. So there's a lot to explore with Armand. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So everyone, I finished the Lestat bookshelf. Let's see all the books that I read. These are all lit. Oh my gosh, what else? And Another Country. Thank you for everyone that's been watching along, reading along. It's a lot to take on. I hope that you're holding on well with everything that's going on in the world. So just keep in mind that life is absolute chaos. So just be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and read more books. Bye.